Hi, it's Toure here, and I'm just so excited to be reviewing another chapter of our amazing book by Toure Robots, Wholeness. This is a book that has really had an impact on my personal journey and on the personal journey of a few other women that I know have actually read it as well. When God started this journey, with me, I did not know there was a book um, called Wholeness. And so for me, it's just been so refreshing to find a lot of the things that God had been teaching me on the pages of this book. And also for me, for my understanding and the insight I have to be reinforced and also, just deepened. It's just been a journey, and it's just getting better and sweeter. And you know what? When you've experienced brokenness, and you've identified it, and you've seen it for what it is in terms of it being a thief, all right, of your destiny, of the bright future that God has for you, then you do not have any business hanging on to it. You just give it to God. I mean, God already said in his word that, you know, he wants to give us beauty for ashes. Some of you've got ashes. When you've got ashes, it means something that's completely destroyed. It's got ashes have no value whatsoever. It is just you just leave it into the wind and let the wind blow it away. But God is promising that, you know what, no matter how, you know invaluable, your situation is, no matter how bad it is, he is able to make something beautiful out of it. And that's why I say, I'll give you beautiful ashes. But you know what? If you keep holding on to your brokenness, and you're being too prideful to admit it, to look it into eyes, or you're allowing insecurities, to in your blind spots to actually keep you in that place, you are not going to be able to be a partaker of this divine exchange. So I'm challenging us again, to give our brokenness and let wholeness, all right, be replaced with that brokenness. God's wish in 3 John 2 is that we would prosper and be in good health, even as our soul prospers. You and I have no reason, we have no business living broken lives when Jesus already paid the price. He said, by his stripes we were healed. All right. He took all of our infirmity, all of our weaknesses, all of our brokenness was placed on him so that we could have life in Christ Jesus. So if you're still holding on to your brokenness, if you're still holding on to your experiences, then it is your fault. But I'm praying that, that you are being challenged as we go through this book, to see the life that God has for you. And that is the motivation, all right, that would keep you and help you to be able to make the decision towards wholeness. So this chapter looks at two halves don't make a whole, chapter 7. And here Toure Robert has been open about his relationship and how when he met his first wife, before they got married, what the first attraction was very physical. And again, he was talking about, going forward, he realized that, he had a cracked mirror that looked at women in that way. It was all very physical. And so going on again, he realized that, the lady had, an aspect of her that presented, you know that presented him the opportunity of a safe future. She was from a sheltered home. She'd had a sheltered background. She was from a safe and a stable home, what looked like a stable home. And in retrospect, Toure actually realized that, she represented the exact thing that, he wished for. Her life was the exact opposite of what he had actually experienced. And so instead of him falling in love with her for who she really was, it was the idea that she represented. It was her lived experience that, that was attractive. And so, they started this relationship on the wrong footing, on the wrong foundation. And there was a codependency that actually came to play as well, because they both then began to feed the void caused by each other's, brokenness. And unfortunately, two broken people cannot really become whole unless they both intentionally pursue wholeness. And so, as I read this, I just kind of like thought about my experience and how this resonates so much with me. I don't know what what it was that you looked out for when you were making your decision about life, the choice of a life partner. But I can assure you that many of us actually were very much like Toure, and we had situations where we had the physical look. The guy was in church, he was a cutie, fine face, but my God, his mouth was like razor. Or he had anger issues that you just thought, oh, it's okay, he's a man of God. Well, we'll just pray that away. That would all go away. And so you get into that relationship. And so you realize, before, not too long, that actually this train ain't going nowhere because both drivers are broken. And so you eventually have a broken down train. And so he talks about laying the foundation, the right foundation for our relationships, because brokenness uses different types of material to build. And when we look at brokenness, it uses insecurity, it uses fear, it uses control, manipulation. So you're in a relationship with someone who's broken. These are the things that they exhibit. Anger to control you. They use all this kind of stuff to build. Whereas wholeness actually uses a lot of, like godly materials. They use materials such as confidence, love, optimism. They believe in you. They're selfless, generosity, very gracious. And so it's important, the material we use to build. And this for me just takes me back to the importance of foundation. When your foundation is broken and you're trying to build a home, the Bible already says, if the foundation is destroyed, what can the righteous do? Obviously, you're not going to have a solid home. You're not going to have a solid building. The foundation is very key. It is what carries the building. And so a lot of people start, a relationship based on very faulty foundation. And then they wonder why the building cracked. Somewhere along the way, the wind just came, the storm came and knocked the whole thing down. Why? Because the foundation was already very faulty. And so Toure spoke about the codependency that he experienced from the start of the relationship, which was not love. And and that was the foundation of their union. And I remember a personal encounter that I have when I realized that actually, Toure, you're only just faking you're just fooling yourself. This is the basis. This is why this person chose you. All right, so accept it and move on, because obviously when you are not fitting into what the other person saw, then there will be problems. Okay, and that's where control, that's where manipulation, that's when abuse actually sets in, because the person is trying to make you conform to what they saw. So we need to be very clear that codependency is not love. If a guy is broken and he has anger issues that he's dealing with, and you are the one who is the easygoing, gentle, quiet type, you may be actually feeding that anger, and you may actually also be tolerating it. Okay, because there is something else that he gives, all right, that you desperately need. And so because you need that, you will tolerate whatever is thrown at you in order for you to get what you need. All right, and that's not going to build a healthy relationship at all. So from the beginning, we need to identify our securities. You know what? You are not to who said you can't get married after 4 children? I mean, I have what my school mother, bless her, in America, she got married last year, 4 kids. Our eldest was in university, our second one was on the way, and she got married. God is God. There is nothing impossible with God. So my challenge is for us not to allow the fears and the insecurity that brokenness throws at us, all right, to actually cause us to stay in relationship. People stay in relationship because of brokenness, because they're just too afraid to be alone. I see it all the time, even in my line of profession. Even just looking around me, there are so many, even women who are still in their marriages, who are broken, and they are experiencing hell on earth, but they dare not. They just can't do anything. They prefer to be in that prison. At least they're still in a relationship, in a marriage, than to free themselves and actually begin to pursue a life of wholeness. So, one thing that wholeness does not do, according to this book, is that it has no sympathy for our attachment. So whatever we attach to, that is based around brokenness, wholeness has no sympathy for it. All right, it's not going to feel sorry and say, oh, sorry. No, wholeness is saying, drop that thing and let us move on. All right, let me make all things new. So we need to learn the art of letting go. Becoming the whole person sometimes would require you letting go, and that was what Toure had to do in his first marriage after several attempts. I mean, he talked about going through therapy, going through counseling, and how at the end they both find wholeness, but they did not find it together as a couple. They found it individually. And you know what, thank God they found it, because at the end of the day, at least they've now both gone on, okay, to get into a thriving relationship. So Toure here is sharing with us 5 must-haves before we say I do. Marriage is one of the most important decisions we would ever make, apart from the decision to follow Christ. Marriage can either break, relationship can make or break you, and it is a decision that has to be thoughtfully, prayerfully made. And there are loads of signs. Many of us, we ignored signs that were there right from the beginning. It was in bold, but like they say, love is blind. That love, whatever it was, definitely was not the love of God that was being described here. Was completely blind, ignorant, foolish, and still went on like a lamb to the slaughter. And so Toure here is challenging us to make sure that we look at these 5 things in relationship that we get into. And the first thing he spoke about is chemistry, and he's sharing from the point of, yes, having had a painful divorce, okay, to now having a thriving marriage. And over the years, he has been able to learn insights into great relationships. And so the first thing he speaks about is chemistry. Chemistry, we're not talking about, that spark, that is sensual. No, it's not the sensual attraction that creates that sensual feeling. No, it's really more of a mutual connection that creates a new kind of energy, and an energy that you both that just drives you both to each other, that happens in you and also between you. And it's almost like a spark that is released. And when 2 souls have chemistry, Toure is saying that an intangible something within is awakened. An intangible something is awakened when there is chemistry. But he then goes on, okay, to put a word of caution that chemistry alone is not enough, okay, to use in terms of determining a relationship, because you can have chemistry with 5 women in a day, or five men. You can see 5 men that sparks something within you. And so there is a reason why chemistry is merely the first component in a relationship, and that's just because it has to be tested. It has to be tested. And the next thing that he talks about is connection. And connection, he described here, is chemistry all grown up. So it's a higher level of chemistry where you feel there is something that has brought you together. He talked about when his path crossed Sarah's path again after a month of meeting the first time, when that initial chemistry took place. There was just some a connection, a deeper level of connection. They noticed that their greeting, everything that they shared, just kind of like there was a synchronizing, there was just a connection. And then he goes on to tell us that connection is just the second components of a whole relationship. However, it also has to be tested. And I love what Toure, goes on to talk about here next. He spoke about how, brokenness can masquerade. People can be connected through their brokenness. So a junkie can be connected to another junkie. Women who have been abused go from, research shows us, they go from one abusive relationship, if they've not dealt with the situation, into another, broken relationship, abusive relationship. So brokenness, all right, can connect people. Different things can cause people to be connected. All right, you just need to share the same interest, and there you go, you're connected. And so he also talks about how codependency, all right, can also masquerade itself as love and creates that connection, which is why we've got to be very careful in terms of, when we say there is a connection. So there are different things that could cause connection. So we've got to make sure that it is not our brokenness that is causing the connection. And that is why the next thing that he talks about, the next component, is wholeness. And that is where he talks about wholeness, where you are already on this journey, you have identified your brokenness and you've given them to God, and wholeness is now ministering to you. It is leading you on this beautiful journey of transformation. And this is a place where you know that you're not dependent on anybody, that you're happy within yourself, you're contented with yourself, you don't need somebody to take you on a date. You can take yourself to a date, you can go to the movie by yourself, you can pamper yourself, you don't need somebody to complete you. God completes you, and you are cool with yourself. A lot of people are not cool with themselves. They're not happy with themselves, and so they're waiting for somebody else to make them happy. I mean, if you're not happy with yourself, why do you need me to come and make you happy? I'm not going to carry that burden. That's not, you've got to take responsibility for your life, so that when you come into relationship with somebody, you're complementing each other. You're not being a burden, dragging each other down. So we need to be whole. We need to be pursuing wholeness as one of the components of a great relationship. And also the next thing he speaks about, is divine divine confirmation. So this is not, the overly spiritual, thus saith the Lord. I mean, I just want to put a word of caution here, because when you have not dealt with your brokenness, all right, the enemy can also bring lies that would masquerade itself as confirmation, because that was my reality. Okay, that was my experience, where the enemy brought lies, all right, and even though everything was screaming that I had heard, all I was just saying is I had heard, God had said. So we need to be very careful. God is not the author of confusion, and if God truly has said, yes, I'm not saying that God is responsible, for making the marriage work. Even if God says, you still both have a relationship, responsibility to make it work. But we've got to be very careful in terms of divine confirmation. But the kind of confirmation he's talking about here is when, things are just happening along the way, without you even looking for them. Just those graces, those rubber stamps, those stamps, heavenly stamp approval that, yes, I'm with you, and it's just, things just kind of like it's like the puzzles just begin to fit together. And, I don't know if a lot of people have experienced that, but that definitely was not my own experience. Okay. And if anything, it was like the opposite. But in my ignorance, I still went on. So we need to be looking for those divine confirmation from above, all right, showing us, God smiling on us, saying, yes, you're doing the right thing. Yes, go ahead. I'm backing you. And they can come in various forms. Divine confirmation can come in variety of forms, but you would recognize them when they arrive. They're just orchestrations that are divine, and they're just there, like I said, little graces, little stamps to say that, you know what, this is it. And also the fifth thing he spoke about is a sense of purpose. And the Bible says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 that to everything there is a purpose. There is a purpose for everything, including God is bringing both of you together for a purpose. Marriage is to achieve a godly and an eternal a kingdom assignment. It is the coming of two destinies, okay, to fulfill purpose. And so there must be a sense of purpose, all right, for both of you coming together. And the more whole we become, all right, Toure said, the brighter our light shines. So you've been working on your wholeness. He's been working on his wholeness. God is already showing you, downloading into your spirit man, your life assignment. Just like, when with Adam and Eve, God downloaded, God had given him an assignment. And so when Eve came, he was able to identify, this is the bone of my bone. This is the flesh of my flesh. I mean, if you've not been spending time, with God in that time when you should be pursuing wholeness, God would not be able to show you your life purpose. And if you don't know your life purpose, and you enter into a relationship with somebody going somewhere else, you're going to be going, in a direction that you're not actually sure about. And marriage is not, you're not to take a gamble. You're supposed to know exactly where the boss is heading, where the train is heading, and make up your mind, am I heading in the same direction? Okay, so we need to have a sense of purpose. Before he was talking about, before he met Sarah, they both had individual, confirmation of what their life calling was. And so when they came together, they were able to determine and to ascertain whether they were actually going in the same direction. And it is so key. I've seen women who have a sense of where God is taking them, and they're in a relationship with a guy who does not have a clue yet where he's going. And I just kind of wonder what the plan is, what is actually fueling this, this decision, because if you're going to, North London, and this guy is going to, or this guy doesn't actually know where he's going, what if he decides to come along with you, you're both going, and then he decide, actually, I'm not going to North London anymore, I'm going to America. What are you going to do? So it is important for you as a woman, as a man, to find your sense of purpose, to have an insight, at least have some insight into what your life assignment is, so that when you both come together, your individual purpose complement each other, all right, and you can bring about God's kingdom on earth. And just in closing, Toure goes on to say, the most rewarding and fulfilling relationship in life are those that involve two whole people. Two whole people. You take who you are. You take your strengths, your weaknesses, everything about you into a relationship. You don't suddenly change, at the altar. No, you take who you are. And if you're broken and bitter and twisted and unforgiving and lazy and not focused, then that's what you're going to take to the altar, and that's what that other person is going to be getting married to. So we need to make sure that we prepare ourselves to be whole, to be a whole individual. And you know what, when you're whole, you would attract wholeness. There is something beautiful about wholeness. You can smell brokenness from afar. You can tell, that no way, I've been here, done that, bye. And that, wholeness becomes a light that actually guides your path and informs your decision. So I challenge you to abandon, yourself in this journey, to this journey of wholeness. Let wholeness bring healing. Let wholeness minister to those cracks, to those areas of insecurity. God wants you to be secure in your inner man. All right, he wants you to be whole. He wants you to prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. So I look forward to seeing you again when we review chapter 8. And in the meantime, stay blessed and keep pursuing wholeness. God bless.